John Pennington back with Andrew Lee, AJ Simcox, and Will Heflin, and we got a comment here from Tony Vitello. And I thought this was interesting, and even he says it right off the top. It sounds a little negative, but it's a little more calm and confident group than we've had. In 2022, it was like I had to play policeman every day to tame that group down a little bit. They were wild. It was kind of what made them go in 2022. And I think our guys in 25, we had to figure out what makes them go. But they've also kind of had to sort through that a little bit too. We had fireworks with the Vanderbilt game, and I think, this is my perspective, both teams were equally guilty of that. It was just the nature of a very competitive series here in Knoxville. And I don't know if this was the case for our guys, but I don't think they do very well with the whole, let's go out and kill these guys and let's go out and dominate. It's better when they're more relaxed and they just go out and play and keep it simple. Okay, Will, you ended that last segment by bringing this up and saying you think that it may be paying off at this point. Do you think, because that's a very look, fans love that stuff. You know, I had somebody, the first comment under I don't know if you saw it, first comment on YouTube under your guys' show the other day was, you guys are overanalyzing it. It's basically, they just got to want it more. And I thought, thank you for telling these three former Vol baseball players that they're overanalyzing what goes into a game. It's all about want to. But fans and media enjoy seeing a team that wants to kill somebody. They got that fire. In reality, not all teams are the same. Teams are built differently. Do you think this team missed some of that during the regular season when it was struggling at times? Do you think that was because, well, they lacked fire? Or, they're just a business-like team. That isn't why they were struggling. Where are you on that?
You're right. Each team's got to be a different concoction of loose and aggressive. And I think this team, maybe more so than the previous one for sure. And a lot of it's due to the transfer portal era and just the nature of baseball being such a peculiar game at times. But I mentioned, I almost think that they're kind of taking the same demeanor that they have all year. And now with the postseason and other teams being more emotional and maybe a bit more of a roller coaster, this team seems very steady right now. They're playing very simple baseball. It doesn't seem like they're too worried about what's going on the next inning, or it's just the next pitch. And I think that's been a really good approach and has allowed them to play from ahead.
Thoughts? Did they miss some of the previous year's fire and craziness, or it's just a business-like team?
I'd say it's more business-like, and maybe it's the NIL era that's basically turned these guys into professional baseball players, because that's always the knock on a pitcher or a player. I'll use Drew Gilbert as an example. Oh, when he gets to pro ball, he's not going to be able to play with that energy for 160 games. And now that these guys are more professional in the way that they're getting paid and approaching the game, maybe that's taken some of that overreaching fire out of them. But I feel like a team is always going to march to the beat of maybe their one or two core guys. And last year was that last class that had played with the Drew Gilbert and the Jordan Becks of the world, who were throwing bats and making gestures to outfielders. Yeah. But I think these guys have that level-headed approach, and even though they're getting knocked for it maybe through the regular season, as Will mentioned, that's exactly what drives success in the postseason. When everyone's heart starts beating a little bit faster, they can kind of keep that level head.
AJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've taken on the identity of Hunter Inslee, right? I mean, I think he is the leader. He's Mr. Vol. He's in his fifth year, and he's pretty conservative, but he's very intense on the field. I mean, we saw it last year in the College World Series. He does play with emotion, but he's very business-oriented. And in the Vandy series, he did get a little chippy too, and I think that's a good thing. But I also think, I mean, baseball is just a sport that it's difficult to see how hard guys are playing. It's not like football. It's not like basketball. Sometimes when things are going bad, it just looks like you're not giving effort. But honestly, they're probably trying too hard, and that's what's causing them to play not up to their standard.
Do you think there's anything? I mean, here's the deal. Tony Vitello is a pretty fiery guy. You played for him. His emotions are on the sleeve quite a bit. Do you think it was more difficult for him to figure that this much? Because maybe they're not as keyed up as those previous teams, which seemed to match his personality a little bit more.
I just think it was so unique in the way that it played out. You know, this team never got swept. A couple guys were on the record saying that he was the same all the way throughout. And I think, you know, he's in his 8th year, but he's still relatively young, being a head coach. And one thing he's always been willing to do is adapt and change. And I think he's trying to match his team constantly, whatever that group may be. He's trying to find the best combination for himself. to get the best out of those guys. And so, whether or not he's going to make that click, however long he's here, there's going to be years where it just doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But what makes them so good is they're able to keep pushing different buttons until they figure out what works.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think the best managers, best coaches in the world are the ones who can figure out, okay, this team doesn't react. He doesn't respond to this, it responds to that. I got to find out what that is because my previous teams have done this. I know this. I got to figure this out. And it looks like they may have done that. Is there any chance? I mean, I wondered with that first group in 2022, the way they were the villains of college baseball. Earlier in one of the shows this year, you said this team has no problem being the villains. But then that really didn't turn out to be this team's persona. They don't go in like the WWE bad guy, the heel. Do you think that plays into any of the players' minds at all? It would be like if you go to Miami. You guys are too young for this. A bad example. Miami football used to be just the bad guys of sport. And everybody that came in there, it was like the next wave had to be as bad as the last guys. We're going to get flagged for this and that and the other. Does any of that play into, well, I've signed with Tennessee, I've seen these guys do this, but that's not my personality? Or do guys just go out there and play ball? Do you think that weighs into it? Is there any kind of, this is the school's persona that they take on or no?
I think it's more of the approach to trying to be elite in some way. Now guys are more taking the, I'm going to get ready for professional baseball approach. I'll take Marcus Phillips as an example. Extremely talented athlete, but has been developing his whole time here. Then we have the Liam Doyle, who comes in as a junior, already polished, and he's become the fire on Friday night. And I think it's been a little bit of two different teams depending on who's throwing. When we play on Friday night, Liam is very explosive on the mound. He's going to let you know that he just struck you out. And then we go to Saturday, Marcus is a little bit more reserved, still an incredible pitcher, but I think sometimes the team doesn't get as loud, maybe for that atmosphere, for whatever reason. So sometimes it's the guy who's on the mound who's setting the tone in that regard.
It's all about wins. As long as you're winning, who cares about the personality stuff?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right.